Hey, my first audiobook is available now on Audible. Check it out. Chapter 12. Remy Rescues. Remy slowed his jog as he passed by a homeless camp on the tracks, one of many he had gone by. He still struggled to make sense of everything that was happening. Thoughts ran through his head on how his family was doing. Was Hugo still near downtown at the dealership? Did his dad do a job downtown today? As he breathed in the smoky air that irritated his lungs, he put his hands on his chest and wiped his sweaty brow with his shirt. Running with a backpack bouncing around wasn't making things easier. Remy felt like taking the tracks was a good choice. The path had been fairly clear apart from a few homeless people. He wasn't sure what was going on, and it seemed best to avoid anyone he could. In the distance, he could see an overpass. He recognized it. He was getting closer to his quadrant. A scream pierced the air, stopping Remy where he was. He had been hearing shouting, screaming, crashing, and other terrifying noises all day. He was disturbed by it all. Scream! There it was again. It sounded like it was directly in front of him. Looking around, he stepped forward, then began to run ahead. His heart sank as he saw two possessed-looking men chasing a woman. He watched as they caught up to her and pushed her down. Remy was not as big as his brother. His experience in fighting was mainly play wrestling with Hugo growing up. He dropped his backpack off his shoulders and set it on the ground. Remy's focus narrowed as his body twitched in fear. All other noises fell away. All thoughts were pushed aside. He couldn't act like he didn't see it and leave the woman behind. His instinct was to protect. As he sprinted toward the thugs with fire in his eyes, fight. Remy leapt sideways, crashing his upper body into Dirty Joe and his legs into Cap 1. The men fell over, shouting. Remy then jumped forward with a punch into Dirty Joe's face. His mask shifted, and he hit the floor. Cap 1 stood up, trying to orient himself, as Remy ran over and gave a soccer kick to his leg. Cap 1 yelled in pain and dropped down to his knees. Remy put his hand behind the man's head and pulled his face into his knee. Cap 1 fell back with a wail. Remy looked at Tori on the ground. "Run! Come on!" He waved his arm frantically. Tori was in shock. She wasn't screaming or crying anymore. She was staring blankly at Remy. He grabbed her hand and pulled her up. "Come on! We've got to go!" Remy dragged her forward as she stumbled and started running on her own. The two of them sprinted toward the end of the light rail station. Remy jumped the low fence along the track and turned to help Tori over. Dirty Joe and Cap 1 were up, shaking off the blows they had taken and adjusting their masks. "I'm pissed off now, Joe! Come on!" said Cap 1 as he started running. Remy didn't want to look back, but he did, and he saw the thugs coming for them. "Up this hill," Remy called out. Tori was climbing up with her hands digging into the dirt. The two made it to the top and looked around, unsure of what to do, and breathing heavily. "This way," Remy said, as they ran across an overpass. There were a few people driving their cars around. He hoped they would help in some way. The wicked men pursued close by, undeterred by witnesses. With less than 200 feet between them, the assailants were gaining. The hospital, Remy thought. The large hospital was just up the street and had been a staple in the southeast quadrant. Tori was breathing heavily as if she might be sick. He held her hand and touched her back to comfort her. "Come on, let's hide out in the hospital. We're almost there." Tori staggered along as Remy pulled ahead. They ran through the parking lot and approached the closed glass double doors. He felt relief seeing a security guard and people on the other side. They raced to the door and began pounding on it to open. Remy glared in contempt. Inside, the angry security guard shook his head and put his hand on his gun in his holster. "We're locked down," he called from the inside. "Hey, this is an emergency!" Remy hit the glass again. The guard scowled, unmoving. "Are you kidding me?" Remy focused on the guard as he looked to his right. "The parking structure! This way!" He began running toward it, with Tori following close by. He could hear her labored breathing behind him. They ran into the parking entrance. The structure was mostly empty. There were a few cars scattered throughout as they ran to the far back corner. Remy turned to Tori and told her to be quiet as they approached the rear staircase.